Welcome back. We're talking about foreign policy in Jokowi's administration with Professor Dewi Fortuna Anwar on the perspective. You talk about how the difference between foreign policy stands of our founding fathers. From Sukarno, we also have Suharto, a prominent leader as well, and SBY, who had done a great job at restoring Indonesia's image. But some are saying his foreign policy is actually geared more towards building his own personal image. And then there's Jokowi. Your view on that?
Well, I think it is unfair to say that President SBY's foreign policy is mostly in aid of his own personal image. If you remember, President SBY took over in 2004, and in 2002 we had Bali bombing.
Yep.
Between 1998 and 2001, Indonesia saw a series of catastrophic disasters, conflicts. You know, we had racial riots, we had communal conflicts where thousands died, conflicts between Christians and right. Muslims, conflict between Dayaks and Maduris, and then we had terrorist attacks. So. And we were just still at a very early stage of our democratic transition.
Yeah.
So Indonesia, in the image of Indonesia in the global stage is very bad. You know, it was regarded more or less as a basket case. And if the image of a country was very bad, who would invest in that country? Yeah. Who would visit as tourists? Yeah, it would be very difficult to restore Indonesia's economic development if people were afraid to come and invest and to come and visit. So developing the country also has to be dealt with in developing its international image. Yeah. I don't think you can say, you know, oh, I'm only serious about developing the country. I don't care about pencitraan, because a citra, an image, is very, very important. That is the whole package. So President SBY took it upon himself to project an international image for Indonesia. I remember in his foreign policy speech of 2005, his first foreign policy speech, he said that Indonesia's international image is where Islam, democracy and modernity walk hand in hand. And that is very important. So public diplomacy is very important to tell the world Indonesia is the world's third largest democracy and a functioning democracy. We are no longer a military-dominated authoritarian regime. Indonesia is the largest Muslim majority country in the world, but we are not defined by radicalism and terrorism. So Islam in Indonesia is moderate and it supports democracy. After all, we are the majority Muslims in Indonesia. We are the one who are supporting democratic transition and consolidation. So democracy is not imported from outside. Then we are a modern society. We are not inward looking. We are not backward. We embrace change. We embrace interaction with the outside world. And for the 10 years that he was president, President SBY did take a very active role in projecting this image to the world, and it also delivered economic development as well. During this time, as you know, Indonesia became a member of the G20.
Yes.
That meant that, you know, the economy grew, so that we already ranked by number 16 at that time. But one thing that was clear at the time was that President SBY was also very personally very interested in promoting democracy as the new credential for Indonesia. So he initiated the Bali Democracy Forum in 2008 because Indonesia wanted to convince our ASEAN partners that in order to develop an ASEAN community, you need to ensure that the people also own the process. And in order for the people to own the process, they need to be able to take part in decision-making process. And the only system that would allow that is a democratic system.
Do you think Indonesia, going back to the ASEAN Economic Community that was kicked off in end of 2015, do you think Indonesia has taken the role of leadership here in making sure that it takes off and that integration is happening seamlessly?
Florence, within ASEAN, there are functional leaderships also. We know that the driver for ASEAN Economic Community was Singapore. So Singapore is always the one from the very beginning that fought for an AFTA, an ASEAN Free Trade area. And then also, it was also during Singapore that took the leadership in the ASEAN Economic Community. Indonesia has supported it because we see that this is important for us. We need to be able to take advantage of the 600 million people within ASEAN. And in order to develop a community, there should be stronger functional integration, and that means the economy size of it. But Indonesia being a big country, it is not as easy for us to win in all sectors. There will be losers and winners. So as you know, that there was
weaknesses
also,
and strengths.
Weaknesses with our small-scale enterprises, our farmers.
Right.
They need to be given sufficient attention to, so that they do not fall down the cracks. So for Indonesia, there was some initial hesitations and also resistance. So, but yeah, Indonesia is committed to do that.
Okay. So now, how important do you think for Jokowi? We're seeing a shift here. Now let's talk about that shift. What do you think triggered that shift? Jokowi's better understanding of what foreign policy means for the country.
Because he's the president of the Republic of Indonesia, he receives all of the briefs from the Prime Minister. Indonesia, because it is Indonesia, a member of various regional organizations and international forums, has to be present at the highest level. It is not possible for Indonesia, for the Indonesian president, to absent himself from an ASEAN summit without causing raised eyebrows and concerns. It is not possible for a president of Indonesia to absent himself from an East Asia summit, or to miss an APEC meeting, or to be absent from the G20 summit. So because he's the president of Indonesia, President Joko Widodo has received, I think, sufficient and timely briefing from the Prime Minister, and also from the Minister of Finance, who is the coordinating one for G20, and from the Minister of Trade, who is in charge of Indonesia's participation in APEC. So because it's a different, you see, as a candidate, of course, Pak Joko Widodo would not have received all of that briefing.
Right.
As president, he has taken that responsibility, and I think that he has delivered to that extent. Of course, he has not yet attended the UN General Assembly because there are just so many meetings. For the past 2 years, it was the Vice President has represented Indonesia as the head of the delegation at the United Nations General Assembly, also at the last OIC summit in Istanbul, and the recent Non-Aligned Movement Summit in Venezuela. But given that the president is only one person, and like everyone, he only has 24 hours a day. He cannot divide himself. So and that's why we have a vice president also. It is not. One should not consider that the country gives less importance to a particular institution if it is only represented by the vice president, because after all, both the president and vice president are directly elected by the people.
Correct. Now we talk about that in the recently held conference for foreign policy, Indonesia's foreign policy, where Professor Dewi was speaking in a number of sessions on foreign policy, spoke about who make the foreign policy in Jokowi's administration. We'll touch base on that issue after we come back.